What's up, welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with my top 10 albums of 2024. Yes, talking the best albums of the year. Of course, if you missed it, see the links below for my top 10 songs of the year and my top 10 K-pop songs of the year. Also going to be doing movies and TV soon. As a reminder, anybody on my albums list I didn't put on the songs list and vice versa, just to keep the list a bit more diverse. Also of note, I reviewed all of these albums in full when they released, so for extended thoughts, make sure you go back and see those. That being said, let's jump in. At number 10, I have Remy Wolf's second album, Big Ideas, from July. I thought this was a really nice step up from Remy, and also was pretty warmly received in her most successful album to date, which is great to see because I think she's one of the most intriguing and just blatantly successful artists in indie pop right now. She has this very effervescent, big, fun voice, and then also makes a lot of really fun production choices on this album, a lot of like doubled vocals and whatnot. All of it comes together, and I think this really both light but also buoyant and very summery album. I think if you like indie pop, you like really like up tempo indie pop, it's really hard to beat this. But also Remy as a vocalist just immediately stands out with a very unique voice. At number 9 for me is Fred Again's 10 Days. I love this record. I think the concept of it is also really impressive. You have these 10 songs representing these 10 days, and it's a really fun kind of evolution of Fred Again's music as he's gone a little bit less sample heavy and is now more interested in working with like direct guests with features and whatnot. There's a reason Fred is one of, if not the most in demand, like new DJ these days, and it's because of just I think the life that flows through his music in such a unique way. I think for house music that at its core can be, repetitive in its loops, I think Fred is able to just flourish in such a way that it just really kind of grabs you. Whether it's the really frenetic energy of a song like Places to Be featuring Anderson .Paak, or I think just the very catchy, repetition of a song like 10. I think the song Peace You Need, very triumphant, very powerful as well. I think this album's like really incredible. 2024 was a great year for electronic music albums, which is not something we can say often, given EDM is not always an album first medium, and Fred was a big part of that this year. Number 8 for me is Alligator Bites Never Heal by Doechii. Doechii really impressed me with this album, and now alongside SZA, she's the face of TDE, and she's certainly their most successful new recruit in the last 8 years. Like it's awesome. But Doechii straight up just really bust out with this album as one of the best rappers we have right now. Her rapping ability is on full display with this, like technical ability, flow, rhyme scheme, you know, uh, intellect as well in terms of like double entendres and whatnot. Just really captivating rapper. But this album also pulls no punches at all. There are huge in your face songs, and I think you have to like look no further than a song like Nissan Altima. Just kind of knocks your socks off. Really awesome album, and I'm happy to see that she's finding a lot of success and seems to be really, keeping this momentum going. It's certainly well earned. Number 7 for me is Hyper Drama by Justice. Again, we had a great year in EDM. This was another one of the banger albums that we got from electronic music this year. Justice also had a lot of pressure on this album because it had been 7+ years since they had last released something, and what they gave us with Hyperdrama was a really, I think, cohesive, finally made album. Is it a bit sanded down and perhaps a bit less in your face as their past work? I think so, but they're just operating at such a high level that whether it's the use of their synths, just I think the song construction, a lot of guitar on this too. It's quite different from Fred again. This really impressed me. Number 6 for me is Chromacopia by Tyler the Creator. I think to some people this is probably going to come across as low, and I think for me that's because Chromacopia I think is the least successful of the recent Tyler the Creator albums. But Tyler the Creator is so great that even the album that I like the least of his last, 3 or 4 is still really great. And that's because Tyler, he's just so interesting. He's just so unique. His concepts, his album, conception has no peer these days. And Chromacopia has so many ideas and so much inside of it. And yes, not all of it works, but a lot of it does. And it's just unlike anything else you get in the rap space. And Tyler is also not afraid to experiment with genre and do stuff that's a lot softer and a lot more melodic and whatnot. And yeah, I think this might be a bit lacking in the absolute peak Tyler the Creator, like individual songs, but there's still some great songs on this, whether it's Sticky or Saint Chroma or Ratata, etc. It's a great album nonetheless. Number five for me is Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter. Sabrina Carpenter, I think, blew everyone away this year. Someone who had been around for some time, obviously the Disney beginnings, some early hits like Nonsense when she broke away from Disney. But this year, with this album, keeping it, kicking it off with Espresso, just an instant classics, never leaves your head pop earworm. Keeping the momentum going with an equally massive song, Please, 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 then actually delivering with the album featuring other big songs that are great, like Taste or Bedchem. I think Sabrina's just pop appeal really blossomed. In a sense, she kind of stole Dua Lipa's lunch money because a lot of the appeal of Dua's music is now the same appeal we find in Sabrina's music. And obviously, the pop girl summer that we had this year with Chapel Roan, whose album is from last year, of course, Sabrina and Charli, was really special because we finally had, newer faces at the top of pop for the first time in quite some time. Sabrina also was very adept at having like her own lore, and you can find that in the music. So there's just a lot under the surface with her music and her artistry if you care to look for it as well. Just, I think, a really impressive year, and now she's an A-list pop star. I certainly didn't see that coming a year ago. Number four for me is Kendrick Lamar's GNX. Now, I did have Not Like Us as my song of the year, and normally that would break my rule of repeating artists on both song and album list. But Not Like Us is not featured on GNX, and that was enough of a separation for me that I could include both. And how could you not include GNX on the best albums of the year? Because Kendrick was able to take the momentum and the great success of Not Like Us and give us just kind of a classic LA rap album with a ton of G-Funk on it, a lot of really fun features from lower profile local LA rappers, and repeating the success of Not Like Us a handful of times on songs like Squabble Up and TV Off. The production is excellent. Mustard is back once again. Is this the most complicated Kendrick album from a lyrical standpoint? No, far from it. Is it the best Kendrick album? It's not. But it's one of his most accessible, probably the second or third most accessible, right? I think only Damn is more commercial than this, I would say. And it makes sense because it fits the moment of where his career was at this year. And, I think there's still kind of iconic songs on this, like TV Off, with the use of those violins, the way they dance with those horns, and then the switch up with the iconic Mustard yell from Kenny. There's a lot to really be impressed with on this album, and it's fitting that he did give us a full length this year because it just caps off the absolutely behemoth year that he had. Number three for me is In Waves by Jamie XX, another album that was anticipated for a long time. The last Jamie XX album was 2016, I believe. A long wait. And Jamie XX is the reason that EDM albums were so amazing this year, combined with, of course, Justice and Fred that made the list. I had 3 EDM albums on the list because they were that good. When I listened to In Waves the first time, I listened to it in the car, and I remember like my jaw dropping multiple times. This is just the most cohesive, the most seamless electronic album I've heard in some time. I think the vision on this and what the album is able to do, the way it switches up, the way it changes, the way it evolves across its track list, just really mind-blowing, and the reason why Jamie XX is one of those, critical favorites, because he just really stands out with a few peers in terms of the type of music he constructs, and it's truly an album experience that you don't often get from EDM, whether it's songs like Batty on the Floor or Daffodil. There's just so many amazing highlights on this album, and again, the sequencing is just spotless. Number 2 for me is Cowboy Carter by Beyoncé. Beyoncé, able to make a dance album in 2022 and Renaissance, and it's incredible. That was my album of the year that year. This year, she's like, fuck it. Let's make a country and Americana and folk album. For a lot of people, it is their album of the year. For a while, it was mine as well. Number 2 for me. Uh, Beyonce is just that talented, that capable, that she can put on any clothes she wants. She can wear any new genre wig, and she's going to do it well because she's that great of a singer, that great of a writer, and she works with that many talented people that she can kind of create whatever she wants. And it's so impressive to me that Beyonce, who's had a long career at this point, continues to want to reinvent and try new things, and it's just very impressive. Of course, this continues something she had done before. Think of like Daddy Lessons on Lemonade. She hasn't, the country didn't completely come out of nowhere, but to do a full album with it, I think certainly did. To me, the song Bodyguard really stands out as one of the great songs of the year without question. And it would have taken a lot for Beyonce not to win Album of the Year from me again. But something did happen. And that was, of course, Charli XCX releasing her magnum opus in Brad. Listen to me before, I'm a big Charli fan, seen her live before. I talked up her past work. Her past albums have made my list. The last 2 did anyway. And I've been a big fan for some time. To me, she's always been the most interesting, the most groundbreaking pop artist we've had in the last, 10 years or so. And then she found a way to somehow top all of that with the best thing she's ever made in Brad. Just everything that's appealing about her in terms of her kind of genre pushing experimentation, and somehow it's presented in an almost even more poppy and like mainstreamly accessible manner with Brad. When I heard the album right away, it just kind of knocked my socks off. There's just so many great songs on here, whether it's Apple or the lead single 360, which is one of the catchiest songs she's ever made. The track list is stacked. And then she somehow found a way to blow my mind all over again with the Brat remix album. Initially, the way the remixes were coming out, the Girl So Confusing remix with Lorde and all the storyline behind that, behind the scenes, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And they did it again with the guest remix with Billie Eilish, which became a massive hit. And I was like, oh, they're doing pretty cool things with the remixes. I was not expecting a remix album for Brad to take it to the next level the way it did. But this is basically a completely new album where the majority of that remix album track list are complete reworks of the great songs of Brad. And in some cases, you get something that's even better than the original, such as the Club Classics remix on the remix album, right? I think of the Apple remix, which is completely different. I think this remix album on its own merits could make a top 10 list, but just the fact that when you can compare it to Brad, then you take these 2, I think, really compelling bodies of work and see what was able to be done with these already existing songs. Really mind-blowing stuff to me. This album, the instant I heard it, I was like, that's the best thing of the year. There's no way that's being topped. And in fact, it wasn't. Unless maybe the remix album, in a certain sense, might have topped it. Which, again, shout out Charli. I'm so happy to see all that success, including Grammy nominations, which have often eluded her. And yeah, I mean, the pop year that we had, certainly unexpected, but really welcome. So just to recap, my top 10 albums of 2024. Number 10, Remy Wolf, Big Ideas. Number 9, Fred Again, 10 Days. Number 8, Doechii, Alligator Bites Never Heal. Number 7, Justice, Hyperdrama. Number 6, Tyler the Creator, Chromacopia. Number 5, Sabrina Carpenter, Short and Sweet. Number 4, Kendrick Lamar, GNX. Number 3, Jamie XX, In Waves. Number 2, Beyonce, Cowboy Carter. And number 1, the best album of 2024, Charli XCX with Brad. And of course, let me know what were your best albums of the year, what would make your top 10. And as far as honorable mentions, of course, I just talked a lot about the Brad remix album, which is a big honorable mention for me. I have to shout out Kate Renata. I think Kate Renata, Justice, Fred Again, and Jamie XX. Those 4 are like really, like, those are the signature EDM albums of the year and why the year was so great. And Kate Renata didn't quite make the cut for me, but was still quite good. I also really like the Schoolboy Q album, the 21 Savage, the Ariana Grande album, which I think wasn't quite as big as people expected, but I liked it for the subversion, the fact that it was a bit different from what she had been doing. The Lupe Fiasco album, Matt Champion album surprised me, Benny the Butcher, JPEG Mafia. I like the Nicki album quite a bit. Her song Focus made my songs list instead. I like the Vince Staples album, Dark Times, quite a bit. His song E2 made my songs list instead. And then just real quick, I think in terms of like the biggest disappointments of the year, there wasn't anything huge, but 3 albums do stand out to me. 2 of them are kind of legacy acts that there was at least some hope that maybe a return to former glory could happen, but now I think we have to just think about these artists in a different light, and that would be Katy Perry and Justin Timberlake. And the Justin Timberlake flop in particular is quite disappointing because I think we just have to kind of let that go at this point. And then also disappointing to me was this is an album that I think was more well liked by others than it was for me, but I really did not care for the MGMT album. It just was not what I was looking for. I know some people had a lot of good things to say about it. I'm not one of them. But yeah, that's my best albums of the year. Let me know what you thought, what your albums were. Again, check out the songs list, the K-pop list, movies, TV, best of 2024. It's happening. Subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. Of course, make sure you come back for next year when we're doing new reviews of stuff as they come out. And I'll see you next time.